I was totally addicted to it right away. I actually still have like, I still actually right now want to go play that again, thinking about it.
Well, Internet Archive is your best hope. It used to be, I would say that's impossible. But now a lot of the times when I think, oh, that was really cool, I remember that from my childhood, bam, the Internet Archive has it and they have it playable. Like they've just done an incredible job with something that I never thought would be possible of having access to these games, forever. Right?
Yeah, I've searched for it, and then maybe, and I don't know if I've searched it through Internet Archive though, so I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, man, Internet Archive. But it's interesting though on games, how many people say, "Oh, I got a computer and I instantly got into games. I was mesmerized, amazed by games." I'm right there with you. I remember in the Mac or in the Apple PC computer lab, Oregon Trail, and another one about fishing. There was like a fishing game where you use different kind of lures, you caught different kind of fish, and the outcomes were different, as well as just all the educational games, just every kind of mech, I think it was type games, educational. Came on floppy disks, like real. As you can see from the picture, these are 5.25 floppy disks. These are real floppy, like they were physically floppy. The second ones, it got a little harder, the 3.5s, because they were to me hard discs because they were made of hard plastic, but at the same time they were still inside just another floppy, just another piece of plastic.
Yeah, the K Pro was a truly floppy. They were floppy, I remember, and then I don't remember if I ever used them. My father used the computer for writing, but yeah, and then later, of course, little 3.5 inch came out called floppy, but they were, they were hard.
What kind of writing did he do? Like business writing or novels or anything?
Yeah, not he's a novelist.
Fantastic. That's
And
very
just,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So he's got actually a new. So he's been writing. He was published back in the '80s and '90s. Several books, a memoir, a couple novels, and he wrote his last book to get published by an actual publishing house. Was in the is in the I don't know, maybe that was several. I can't remember what year it was. It might have been in the '90s, early 2000s. But he's written a few books since then. He's sort of self published them, and I was actually just communicating with someone about novels as NFTs and kind of the approach to that and how that's going to where that's going to go. So I'm interested on that aspect too.
That would be interesting. I mean, even just NFTing the covers is a pretty interesting idea right there, just the cover art. And the idea that for a lot of people, just owning the cover is pretty good. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know about the rest of it. But there's also, I mean, it could be an access code. Like, certainly, I think the idea of giving people a sample of the novel and then paying to continue reading, that's a cool idea. Having
Yeah,
a,
so there's one. There's this lady. I just did a search. Should have had the page up, but she did that, and she did I think she did a crowd raise, and somehow I don't know how she kind of inserted an NFT into this. I'll try to find it and send it over here in the chat. Though.
well, where there's a will, there's a way. There's always a way to insert an NFT today, these days. So we're
Yeah.
going to invite some more people up onto the speak. What was your name and where are you from? So we have it with your K Pro story. Even just a
Oh yeah.
generic is fine. You don't have to reveal yourself or anything. So
No, I don't mind actually. My name is actually in my username, Janir Thorndike. I live in Hawaii, on the Big Island of Hawaii.
nice, Hawaii. All right, let's welcome Jamal to the show. He shared a link. I'll bet he has something interesting to say. How's it going, Jamal?
I'm good. How are you?
We're just talking about first computers today. What was your first computer, Jamal?
The original iMac.
Nice. The like the colored bubble type one.
Yeah, the blue one.
Oh, nice. Who brought it home for you? Was it a family member or at a computer
Yeah.
lab? Or?
Yeah.
Nice, man. What kind of things did you do with the computer?
Well, I learned how to use a computer all by myself, just from using that. It was fun. I used to browse the internet. and draw stuff on the Claris. But
Were you on the internet right away when you got the computer, or?
no, not right away. It was slow. We used dial up.
Nice dial up. Yeah, I was on dial up too. Dial up was pretty good though. People are all making fun of it these days, but I still think dial up was so much better than not having internet, right?
Yeah, it's the internet that makes the computer. Without internet, there's nothing really to do.
It feels that way, but still, back in the day, we used to occupy ourselves all the time. Although I guess we had games too. Uh, did you play any games on the iMac?
There was a demo game, some dinosaur game.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember there's a game on the Apple II, and it wasn't even really a game. It was mainly like a computer quiz where you would answer questions like, what is a hard drive and what is RAM and stuff like that. And I would just breeze through this computer quiz so I could get to that game at the end that was a maze and it had a rabbit with a carrot. And I don't know, it was just a great maze and I wanted to play it. So I'd go through the quiz over and over again. I guess that's how I learned what RAM was. We're also joined by Dan. How's it going, Dan?
Good. How are you, Thomas?
Oh, I'm doing good. I think I got stood up. I mean, the thing I go different ways on this. At one point, I love having no appointments. I have a nice empty schedule. I wake up, I do what I want to do. I probably don't get as much done as I would if I had more appointments, right? But then I try to get appointments. I try to go the other way. I'm like, I'm going to be responsible and show up on time. And then the appointment people don't show. And it's like you're just sitting there and you're like, this is the worst of both worlds. And then even now, it's like if I start a really good Twitter space right here, the guy's going to show up because that's what happened last time. Last time, the appointment didn't, or the appointment was going to show, but
it's balance in all things, Thomas.
I know. I want all the things to be perfect and to run perfectly because I showed up early. I like the lawyers. I used to work for lawyers, and they taught me one thing. They're like, 15 minutes early is not enough, and especially if you're a tech person. If you're a tech person, it's like, yeah, you should be there 45 minutes. So when things break, you have an extra half hour to fix them. And this is good and bad. Like you end up being everywhere early all the time, and it kind of costs you a bunch of time. But then every once in a while, when everything breaks, you're there early so you can fix it. So I don't know.
I guess it depends on how catastrophic, not having stuff work on time is.
Apparently, it would have been the end of the world for the trials and stuff, trial people and people's time. When people start billing their time at, $1,000 an hour, stuff like that, and you're wasting hours of their time. Also, like things like meetings and depositions, getting important people together. But I suppose,
that's important.
Yeah, but today's deposition probably wasn't important enough. So I need the power of legal force to ensure that people make my appointments. And next time I'm just getting all their phone numbers. I want to be able to like buzz into their life more.
See, if we made the appointments NFTs, then your legal enforcement would just be the blockchain.
Again, it's just it's not real world enough. It's like I'm into S&M, but only on the blockchain. It's like, yeah, that
well, you ready for this?
Never really connects.
When you call a meeting, right? Everybody has to pay into a pot, and all of it with digital signatures. And if you don't show up and sign something with the other people in the meeting, then you don't get your value back.
See, now this is horrifying because I've been doing nothing but missing meetings lately. I'm the guy that like 5 minutes into the meeting, they're sending the announcement to, and he's saying, what platform are we on? Where's the conference call again? And then I get there and they're like, this entire meeting depends upon you. I'm like, uh-oh.
See, it's the spam problem all over again, right?
Oh, there's just too much to do. There's just, and on the emails, I think my theory on that one is that they set up a new email for me and I haven't gotten in there yet because I just feel I have enough email addresses. If I add one more, like what will I do to myself? But apparently I must do that because I need to get these messages and I need to be, responsible.
You just go in there once and have it forwarded to your regular account.
That's right. Let's see. We're joined by Space Cat Mike. Space Cat Mike, what was your first computer? And what's your name? Where you're from? Welcome to the show.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. I'm thinking back to like 1991. It was like a 386. That's kind of the earliest. I'm not sure exactly which beyond that. It's been so long ago.
Was it a tower or a pizza box?
It was certainly a tower. I mean, it was the classic beige ones, you know. And
nice.
I'm thinking about the game that I was playing at the time. Was it Commander King? Was it SimCity? I think was one of the early games, the original. Warcraft, that came out in like 94. So I'm trying to remember what I was playing at the time, but maybe I was too young to really understand what I was doing. But it's not until like Windows 3.1 came out that finally I got more involved. So yeah.
Yeah, original SimCity was welcome to the show, Mike. Original SimCity was a great game. We used to do this thing on I think it was a 286, and you would just let the computer run. And if you set the budget down so that you were making money, you could just let it run hundreds of years and make a bunch of money. Then you could build the stadium and whatever you wanted to do. So we just let it run like overnight. And it was the funnest thing. I used to have a big power strip. You'd click on and off the monitor and the computer. And sometimes you'd screw up and you'd click off the computer. It was fun.
Right. Yeah. And things have certainly changed since then for sure.
Oh, yeah.
What is that? I'm wondering what prompted the conversation about.
So what did you do with the computer? Did you play games, or what did you do next?
Well, I was really young at the time. I was like 6 or 7 years old, so I'm not going to be able to remember that much about it. Yeah, so I'll be honest there.
No, it's just good to talk old computers. I do a show, Proof of Work, and I was going to talk to a friend of mine today about his first computer. And after I do the first computer thing, then I kind of say, well, how'd you get into Bitcoin? And a lot of times it's like a straight line. It's like, I got my first computer, I learned programming, I went to college, I learned programming, I got into Bitcoin, and I did programming. It's like, makes sense. Other people are like, I was an art student and I learned Photoshop, but then I read on this forum about Liberty and I got into Bitcoin. Or they're like, I was into online poker and then I got into Bitcoin. And so it's just really interesting. And then the other part about that's so great is just the first computer part. It's always like a family member, pretty much. Like it's a family member or a computer lab, which is both a community thing. So it's just nice to talk to people about it. I think it's a good icebreaker for the digital age, right?
No, you're right. It's a good point, because I wish I could say the same in terms of getting involved with coding and programming. That really didn't come out until like later for me personally. My personal interest in it until I was like in 10th grade, high school. Even that, I guess wasn't really for me per se. But it certainly introduced me to the idea of networking, the idea of computers communicating with each other, and that was certainly a type of understanding that I think is important. When you think about Bitcoin, is that in terms of decentralization, in terms of nodes, in terms of miners, in terms of everything like intercorrelated with one another. So it takes that type of, in some cases, personal exposure to it to really kind of get it when first being exposed to it.
Definitely. And the thing that turned me on to, kind of starting into programming and starting into things like that is that I wanted to do things, right? Like it made no sense when they tried to teach me programming and it was all, learn to put numbers in and out of an array and put them forwards and backwards. And why am I doing this? But later on, when I wanted to make a movie database, when I wanted to make a blog and to have that kind of, ability to go on the web and share information, it made perfect sense. I was like, oh, PHP and MySQL, this is great. I can learn how to do this. But before that, I had no idea what you would do with this programming.
Oh, you're so right. I mean, I think that's the problem for me is that unless if you have a problem that you want to solve, it's very challenging to identify what it is at the time you're trying to really learn. And especially when you're younger growing up and you're learning these things, unless there's some kind of larger picture at play, for some people that doesn't matter. For me, as I agree with you, because I didn't have some kind of problem to solve, I didn't understand what I was doing with these arrays and these types of intricacies of all these types of integers and all that stuff. Like, it didn't really mean anything to me at the time. So I did that.
Well, I think it's gotten a lot better now. Like, I mean, I could tell they probably taught you programming around the time they did me, because we had to type all the variables. We had to say that you're going to get a number, or you're going to get a huge number, or you're going to get a string, or you're going to get a huge string, or that kind of thing. And now I think there's a lot of auto typing and a lot of, things that go on. You just, instead of really programming, like writing the bare code, I think they really just use modules and different pieces of things and plug them together. And it's a lot more like scripting. But again, I'm sure it's very high level and it's worth paying them, 100 times my salary or whatever. But
well, see, that's what I don't get. That's what I don't get is it seems like it's like an abstraction built upon abstractions, as if don't reinvent the wheel. But like, if you're including libraries and modules, is that really the best computational way to have done that to begin with, or what? Or are we just assuming that you're building on the shoulders of giants, that it's settled science, so to speak, in terms of computer science? You know what I mean? Like, is it already kind of a done deal where we have to move forward with this extrapolation process?
I was a software developer for 20 years, so
oh shit.
Yeah, it's funny because it actually works a lot like Bitcoin does, right? It's layered, and so if you're a web developer, then you're using frameworks and building web pages and things like that. But if you're a framework builder, then you're at a lower level. And if you're someone that has to write, drivers for an operating system, you're probably writing that stuff in C, or you're what's called close to the metal. So it's really like there's a lot of. I was a web developer, and I couldn't even tell you how to start writing a driver for an operating system. Like, no idea. So yeah, it's just it's all a bunch of layers stacked on top of each other.
So Dan, what was your first computer?
The first computer I used was my dad's, and that was a TRS-80 back in the day with an awesome cassette tape system. And then my first computer that I owned was a Packard Bell 386. No, it was a 46SX. And then I upgraded to the DX and got the math coprocessor, and the thing was lightning fast.
Well, first, slow down and explain it to the kids. How on earth could you have a computer program on a cassette tape?
Well, so any media storage just stores ones and zeros, right? And if you've ever seen those really old movies, or the episode of where the $6 Million Man fights Bigfoot, they've got these big reel-to-reel stand-up systems, and those big reel-to-reels are just magnetic tape that store ones and zeros. The big problem with the tapes is that they were not random access; they were linear access. So to get to the part of the tape that you had your program on, you'd actually have to fast forward and rewind and do all kinds of crazy stuff to get to the point where your data actually was. So yeah, it's just a different format from a thumb drive nowadays.
That's amazing to think that those giant reels in the background of all the old movies were tapes. They were cassette tapes. And to think even simpler that it was ones and zeros stored in sequential order. It's amazing.
It's all just ones and zeros, man. All the way. It's ones and zeros all the way down.
Very much like the Matrix with the code. But yes, after they stored the ones and zeros on the weird cassette tape thing that I never used. So anything that I never used is strange and weird. Anything that I used is normal and commonplace. So after that, they started using floppy disks. Did you use really big floppy disks?
Yeah, I used the 5 1/4. I never used the 8 1/2 inch.
All right, because they did have bigger floppy disks that were before my time as well, where they used to hold them up in class, and you'd be like, "That's a huge floppy disk." And now everyone says, "You 3D printed the save icon."
Right.
And they're not kidding.
Yeah, people don't know what the icon is anymore. I think those are the small 3 1/2 inch, aren't they? The icons made from the small 3 1/2 inch.
And those haven't been useful in a long, long time.
I remember loading Microsoft Office with its 35 to 40 discs.
Yeah, I was watching the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he has an episode nowadays where he and some other guys, they were in a conference at Portland, Oregon, and they had a road trip for like 3 hours, and they drove to the last Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon. And it was just a trip to see them wandering around the Blockbuster, and it looked exactly the same as they always look, stacks of videos, new videos from the modern times, some guy walking in front of their camera because he's just there to rent videos. He doesn't care about these tourist kids and their cameras. But what's so interesting, I thought, is I was like, and it gets a little macabre, I guess, but there was a last time that you rented a video. There was a last time that you used a floppy disk. Like, if using physical media used to be such a commonplace thing, and now it's just drifted off. You just stream everything, right?
Yeah, well, here's the weird thing. I was shopping for a couch the other day, and I thought, this will be close to the last couch I ever buy in my entire life, because they last like 20 or 30 years.
Well, you better buy a good couch, right?
Right.
I mean, I have a specific suggestion here. I've did some furniture shopping a few years ago, and again, it's just like car shopping. I mean, and books or anything else. I sat on every couch in the place, right? I just went, couch to couch to couch, and they came up with this one at Ashley Furniture called the Persephone couch, and I thought it was like Persephone, and that's a cool name for a couch, right? Underworld, and Hades drags her down there against her will, and she's freed by one of the gods and brings her back up half the year, and that's why we have the seasons, because half the year she's in hell. That's a cool story. I was like, that's a cool story for a couch. But nah, it turns out it's just like Persephone, but it's just a really solid, extra stuffed. I think part of it's leather, part of it's fake leather. So I guess that's good or bad if you want that. And I think it's memory foam is the new thing. And that's really cool. New couch technology. But the angle of the recliner, it just kicks back that extra angle to put you into nap mode. So yeah, I think couches are like mattresses and shoes, like important things that you use a lot in your life. And if you think you don't use it, you're probably in denial. But that's okay.
The chair as well.
Chair is good too.
Chair.
Office
when
chair.
I have to so damn much.
Totally. And that's another one you don't want to think about, like, I don't want to make it luxury and glamorous, but if you read any of the books, they're like, make your workspace nice, make your sleep space nice. Like these little extra things can help you work better, help you sleep better. Totally makes sense.
That's so funny. You're talking about that perfect angle of sleep. I was thinking of like a recliner that has like this zero gravity kind of like NASA style kind of ability to kind of create this concept of float, like being floatedness. And it just seems to me that one extra step of plugging into the matrix, basically. Like next thing is going to be a pod that you're going to create for yourself that you step into.
Well, I have those zero gravity lawn chairs they have at Walmart, the ones that like kick back, the latest technology in lawn chair tech. And I haven't put the VR inside them though. That would be pretty cool though if you're in the chair, kind of floating, and put the VR goggles on and see where you are.
Hey Thomas, I've got a Bitcoin question for you.
All right, I'll give it a try.
I am in the process of putting my seed phrase on steel washers. I got the stamps from Amazon, the ones that you hammer. Is it true, just to confirm, that you only need the first 4 characters of each word?
Okay, well, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I do know that the Bitcoin words are like the Scrabble words. There's an official list of the Bitcoin words. I don't know exactly how many there are. I would guess around 2. I don't know. I want to guess. Ben knows. But
there's 1,028 of them, I think.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
4. Yeah, the 4. I've heard about that as well. Like when as soon as you type your 4th one, it's already so deterministic that it's already known at that point.
And I've seen other seed, like metal seed things that it seems like you can only put in the first 4. But like I say, I'm so cheap that I can't do anything but go out and get washers. I look at this stuff like from BT Sessions or something, and I'm thinking, $100? Are you crazy? So yeah, I'm kind of doing it myself.
What do you mean you're using washers? Now the thing we're talking about, first of all, is if everyone is new to Bitcoin or whatever, let's get a green address wallet on your phone. What's nice about green address is it forces you to write down your 24 words, and your 24 words are kind of like a cryptographic way of opening your wallet. So if you wanted to access your wallet again and you had the words, you could do it. So what Dan's doing, it sounds like, is he's taking his 24 words and he's trying to make a metal hard copy of them, because if you wrote them on paper, first of all, it could get smudged. So be careful with those felt pens. Second of all, paper breaks down, it gets destroyed, doesn't last forever, destroyed by fire. Metal's much better. So is that what you're doing, Dan? You're creating a metal one? And how are you creating it yourself?
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Because there's companies like Crypto Steel, where you can buy I haven't seen it, but I imagine it's a kit with a bunch of little pre-printed words, and you put them together on like a bracelet, and it goes inside a little pen, or you put them together on a little metal card kind of thing, and they click together, something like that, right?
Yep, something like that. So what I've got though is I've got the cheapest possible solution, which is I bought a set of metal letter stamps, and essentially just washers from Lowe's, so that I could fit them on. And I'm going to put my words on the washers. I'm going to stamp them in there with a hammer, and then you put a screw through the whole thing and put a bolt on the end, and you can just bolt them together. So it's essentially a stack of washers with your seed phrase on it.
Yeah, right on. I saw that earlier as well, and I posted that to Twitter in case we want to share that, because that is a really cool thing to do, and I've been wanting to do it as well.
By the way,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say this. My name's Joe. By the way, I decided to chime in. Someone mentioned about the letters. If you use you can even create a bullshit wallet and then get rid of it on Electrum, but you'll see that when you type in your word phrases, it'll never get past like 2 or 3 characters, because it'll finish it for you. So if the words I don't know, book, you type in BO and the rest of it all appears, because it goes on to what you were just saying, that you only have to do the first couple of characters, because of course the algorithm in that, at least that wallet, finishes them for you, because to save you time, so you're not typing in like a 9-character word.
Yeah, I think I got to look up the spec, because if I'm doing this, if I'm stamping these in metal and I only put the first 4 characters in, and then I throw away my piece of paper, I'd be very bummed if that was right.
Yeah, you might as well go for all of it, go all the way. Because I'm looking at
right. Yeah, you're right.
It looks like they're going to the whole set of characters across the board. Maybe that would be the preferred option, and not really trying to be smart about it. Like outsmart yourself and then fool yourself at the end.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up the BIP now, see if I can find out.
Out of curiosity, once you
do a test, you could send $10 to the wallet, import it, and you wouldn't have to create the metal version before you could do the test.
Oh yeah, I could just try restoring my wallet from my stamped metal seed phrase. That's a good idea. There's nothing like a test.
Yep.
Out of curiosity, is it hidden under your bed, or the idea of putting it at a security deposit box?
That's even worse.
And that's the thing. It's like, okay, well then where do you put it afterwards? I mean, for me, I'm going to put it in my safety deposit box, just because, I don't know, at some point you got to trust somebody, right? If the government is going in and cracking open safety deposit boxes, then the poop has really hit the fan at that point.
Well, I'm thinking 2 words: Shawshank Redemption. That's what I'm thinking. Andy Dufresne at the end. Yeah. And red.
The nice thing, remember the other thing, you can buy multiple Trezors, you can have multiple hardware wallets, you can have multiple metal wallets, all of this stuff. You can split up your money into different parts. And normally there's like a cost to that. You have to go fill out a bank form and get a new account, and they send you stuff and all that. For Bitcoin, you can just buy another Trezor. Like if your investment gets too big, buy a second or a third Trezor, buy another safe deposit box. And just to stand up for safe deposit boxes, as Andreas always said, we've had computer security for like 20, 30 years. We've had physical security for thousands of years. Right. So when you get a safe deposit box, even though it's incredibly ironic, like you're saving your bank money inside of, you destroy the bank money inside of the banks. It does actually work. Like it is pretty safe. Like they're only open during the day. Like someone can't come in there with a gun, like holding you hostage to take your safe deposit box. Like it's, except in a really exciting movie. But it's a good idea, and you can have multiple ones. And
the one that I think Andreas, I heard a really good piece of advice from him. He's like, don't get too cute with it, because I remember the first wallet I had, I was super clever, and I switched like my first 12 words for my last 12 words, and then wrote it on the paper, and had that system for a while. And then I thought, well, if something happens to me and my wife tries to get at this, she's not going to know the secret switcheroo thing. Like, if you get real cute with it, then either you're going to forget how you did it, or people that are trying to get it that are your inheritors can't get it. It's just like, it's already good enough. There's no reason to add other crazy stuff on top of it.
And that's why there's products out there. You say you have to trust them at the front point. That's why we have multi-state addresses. That's why there's a company I'm trying to partner with, Unchained Capital here in Texas, where there's inheritance planning that's part of the system, that's part of the process. Should anything happen, you still hold two of the keys. They're the backup. So there are opportunities there where you don't have to really take it all upon yourself and to think, because I think what Matt was saying earlier about like the crazy movie style. If anyone read Bitcoin Billionaires by Mesrick, that guy that did Social Network, there was a scene in there, or a part of the book, where the Winklevoss guys bought this laptop and then split up the seed phrase. These 4 mnemonic phrases are out there, and they split it up in like 6 different parts, and they flew out in different parts of the country to respective bank deposit boxes in different parts, so that there's always some fault tolerance, so to speak. Or I'm trying to remember exactly how they did it, but that was the whole kind of concept of what they were trying to do, is trying to break it up so that there's no single point of failure, so to speak.
That sounds great, and especially for people of their value, they really have something to worry about. Obviously, if you have a couple $1,000, it's not really the end of the world if you have a safe deposit box or something like that. But if you're the Winklevi, and especially if you think about what happened with what's his name? I almost had it. The guy that Coinbase bought them anyway, but they were the big storage company for a long time for keys, and they had a big underground bunker that they'd bought.
Zappo?
Yeah, Zappo. That was it. And what's his name? Wences. Wences is the big guy, and that started out on Wences's laptop. And Wences was like a startup guy, and he was doing pretty well, and his friends were doing pretty well. And he would say to them, hey, rich friends, buy some Bitcoin. And they'd be like, we don't understand computers. You're smart. Why don't you hold the Bitcoin for us? And so Wences had them on his laptop. And at first it was like a laptop in a safe in his fancy house. And then it was like a laptop in a safe in a mesh room or something, like a Faraday cage. And then it was all these things. And then pretty soon, I think he had to start that company Zappo so that they could better secure his friend's Bitcoin because it got out of control, the value. So yeah, at the time that they had joined Coinbase, there was a big public article and they had pictures of everything. And what a fantastic vault they have somewhere with a safe, building and a mountain, and you go underground and layer and layer and layer and layer, and then there's the keys. So stuff like that, obviously not for the normal people, but neat to see the professionals taking it seriously.
Totally. I saw those pictures. I mean, it's very, so people are taking it seriously, and I hope that others look to that to see, instead of what people are saying in terms of the news, look at what they're doing actually in physical reality. There's a lot of that movement towards that type of cold storage, for real wealth, and hey, I'll jump on board,
Well, what's fun is even if you just take like $100 in Bitcoin or 50 or whatever, and put it on each wallet. And then each wallet could be a different strategy towards this. So one of them, you could put it in a jar and you could bury it underneath your house. And one of them you could put in a safe deposit box. And one of them you could put in a safe in your closet, and one under your bed, and one under the floorboards, and one in the attic. And, you know, it's kind of fun. It's all these little like money in a bottle. And if you find them, and if you still have the keys and you still have the passwords and everything, it could be kind of fun. So.
Okay, so I'm looking through BIP39 right now, and it says explicitly the word list is created in such a way that it's enough to type the first 4 letters to unambiguously identify the word. So you only need the first 4 characters.
All right, so I rebel against every single Bitcoin wallet app. Why are they making me type more than 4 characters?
I'll bet you they don't. I'll bet you if you put in the first...
J'accuse.
I bet you if you type in the first 4, it fills out the rest automatically.
In the good ones, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe not the ones I use.
Wait, but would that be the same for the first word, even? Like you're saying, like with all the 48 words in the dictionary or whatever it is, you're saying even the first word you put in, you need the first 4 letters, even there might be multiple options. How does one really know at that point? Yeah, I'm not really a mathematician like that, but
yeah, I think it's just a really unique, specific word list where if the word was like arrest and it was ARRE, there's no other like arrested or any other variations of arrest on the list. So ARRE, and it's like, boom, that's arrest. Done.
Well, I'll give an example on the Electrum that it's mentioned. Like if I type in the letter A, all the words with A appear in a list. So in other words, if there's like 5 words that start with A, and then when you type in the second letter, the other ones will disappear if it doesn't have that letter.
Right, so 4 it is then. So that matter is settled.
Right, and I don't think I've ever gotten to 4. Just to give an example, like when I've typed it in, I'm pretty sure the most I've ever had to do was 3. But then, of course, what I can do is select the word. So in other words, if there's 2 words there, so it's not that I might click 4 times, you know, like 1, 2, 3, it gives 2 choices and then I click the word, something like that.
I think you're right. I think the part they're tricking me on is they're tricking me into physically writing down all the words, but they probably want to do that in case I screw up with the handwriting. If I manage to write the first 3 or 4 letters in an illegible way, but I wrote the entire word, maybe you'd have a better chance of reading it.
You can reassemble the word. That's a good point. Yeah. Also, just if there's international listers, there are special considerations for other languages. So, yeah.
Do they have different wallet lists? I mean, let's slow it down here. Do they really use a different wallet list? Because not to be Anglo-centric or whatever, but if English is the language that was programmed in, so on and so forth.
So from BIP39, there's English, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, 2 Chinese versions, a French version, Italian version, a Czech version, and a Portuguese version.
Fantastic.
Now, I don't know if they're the same words,
sure,
or different words, but
it's curious. I mean, we have the building blocks of a Bitcoin language here. Like if we played, Scrabble with only the Bitcoin words, and if we all just started memorizing these words and using them for communication, we would have our own little, what's it called? That's the language. So that was everything.
I love
Esperanto.
Ben Ark.
Esperanto.
Yes. I love Ben Ark's idea about you can. What is it? What did he say? You can identify any 1 by 1 square meter on the planet with 4 words using BIP39.
Yeah, he built a website, something like just 4 words. And there's another one that was not based on the Bitcoin words, but Ben's was the Bitcoin words. Is it? I don't know if I could find it.
Okay, I'm checking that out right now.
He shows it to us and then he hides it from us. So I don't remember where it went now. I'll try to get him on here. But yeah, he did make it where it was a map and it was just 4 words, and you'd identify like a space, and all these things are like remind me of 80s Tom Clancy spy movies and all that, where you can identify any four words as this place. So it's like, arrow, lamp, computer, doorknob. And that would be a place that we could meet in London, and we would do the secret drop there. And that sounds ridiculous, but no, Ben had built a system.
It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, it's one of those tiny little Bitcoin things that you don't likely think about it very much. But even if you take 12 words, I mean, 12 words put in a different order. It's like magic.
It is like magic. And welcome to everyone to the Twitter space. We're just hanging out today. I was supposed to talk to a friend of mine about his first computer, but he didn't make it today. So I'm asking you, the audience, about your first computer. So if you want to step up on stage and have a fun little chat about the old world of computers, or maybe you're a young person, the new exciting world of computers, let me know. I'm just going to go ahead and invite some people on stage. Dan, how's your afternoon going?
My afternoon is going well, although it's about time to spend time with the family. So I'm going to get going. But I guess the challenge for the audience is to beat a computer older than the TRS-80. So there you go.
Older than the TRS-80. The first guest had a K Pro, which was a pretty old computer. It's a luggable, like green screen. I think he's got your TRS-80 beat already. Dan.
I do have an IBM 8088 luggable.
Ooh, 8088 luggable is an old computer.
It had dual 3.5-inch floppies.
K Pro luggable was 81. They first put it out, I believe.
Ooh.
Wow. I think that beats me by like 3 years.
Already beaten. Well, very cool, Dan. Thanks for hanging out. And
yeah, you are very welcome.
Yeah, just good to get.
Have a good day.
See you later, Dan. And let's see, Joe, have we asked you about your computer yet?
Yeah. Mine was actually a Mac, the very, very first Mac, the small one.
Oh, fantastic!
The tiny one that you needed floppies with.
Hello.
Yeah, and I remember that the time frame we upgraded. I went through the upgrade path to a Mac Plus as time went on. And I like to tell people that, I'm old enough that it goes back to BBSs. And I remember thinking that when I upgraded from a 1200 to a 2400 baud, that I thought, like, this is blazingly fast. And 2400 baud, blazingly fast. Little did I know what was coming down the line.
I remember the same thing, but for me, it was from a 2400 baud to a 14.4. And that was a 7-fold jump. So I remember specifically, I would watch text like creep across the screen. And it was actually like, it was my reading speed. I was like, tick, 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 text is coming in. And then when the 14.4 came in, it just, the whole page would fill with text. It was amazing.
Wow. I'm thinking 14.4, 28.8, 33.6. I'm trying to remember where, I'm probably in the middle. 28.8 is probably where I was really picking it up, but not because I was in it, because my dad was in it. I was too young to obviously buy that stuff myself.
28.8 was pretty fast. And then I remember 56K was just an insane breakthrough where part of it was like software and part of it was magic, and it would never really work at the full speed, but still the dream and the possibility of connecting at that speed from your home, from anywhere, 56K, anywhere with a phone line, a hard jack phone line. It was amazing.
Yeah, I remember the arguments about the phone line. You pick up the phone and you ruin their connection if you're downloading something. I remember that. My brother got mad at me a lot of times for that.
That I was definitely mad at my brother and my family and all the time about that. And some of my other friends somehow had convinced their parents to let them have a second phone line. What incredible wealth! A second phone line. But yeah, Joe's right to mention BBS is here. One of the great things you guys can check out right now, thanks that we're living in the future. Jason Scott of textfiles.com, one of the great archivists with the Internet Archive, has made a documentary called BBS, the documentary. And I don't know about the young people who don't know what BBSs are. BBS is where you could dial up with your computer through the phone to another computer. And it was amazing. It was like before the internet, you could just browse one computer to another computer, sometimes multiple computers, sometimes multiple users. Sometimes later on, you could get to the internet through a BBS or the early internet. But he made a great documentary about it. It's if you check it out, I'm sure it's on YouTube now too. But I have the
the first thing you'd always do is get the BBS, everybody's BBS list, so you can find out more places. Log onto a place and find out the BBS list, so you get like another 10 numbers.
That's what you got to do. And you'd go town to town. And what I didn't know at the time is that this is the reason many people were, borrowing phone service and so on and so forth, because they were calling BBSs outside of their area. Like, to me, that was just like obviously a mistake. My parents would get charged and it would just be a huge error. But no, people had figured out how to use the phone system to let them make those calls for free. But it was an amazing time and a very early computer time, connecting individual computers one-to-one. But yes, BBSs were very cool.
It is kind of sad these days. I think you were talking about physical media these days is now like being converted to like digital all the time. And the concept of ownership really comes into question at that point of licensing and things like that is what kind of I start wondering about this physical media. And there was that, I forget the exact medium it was that was supposed to withstand like 1,000 years because, CDRs and DVDRs and those types of things that came out later were certainly not built to withstand time, so to speak. And the continuity over long periods of time has always been a question or concern in terms of all these types of attack vectors like EMP strikes and things like that. I'm curious about where we stand these days in terms of the redundancy factor with all the decentralization that we're at nowadays. It's a really fascinating idea to me personally.
Tape is still the best.
Yeah.
Magnetic tape.
Yep. Yeah, truly archiving things is very difficult. Like you were saying, the CDs and the DVDs, where a lot of us have stored our photos and our videos and things like that. Whether you store them well or not, they're reaching their end of life, where the plastic layer on the top is just going to peel off. And that's where your data might be, right? So yeah, we all need to get things on hard drives and multiple hard drives. And even then the cloud, which is just someone else's hard drive. But even then, if you have important data like photos and videos and family stuff, yeah, get it converted, get it backed up. There's a lot of services now that'll convert your old videotapes and high 8mm, Super 8 movies, all that kind of stuff. If you have any of those in your family, just get them converted. It costs a couple $100. The companies are mostly trustworthy now. I'm not making individual vouchers, but I think they'll do a good job and they'll convert your stuff to a DVD or CD, and then you can load it onto your computer and make multiple copies on your hard drive. And archiving is very important for this physical media.
But Joe is saying tape is still the king. How does that go? Tell me about that.
Well, the only thing you have to worry about is temperature, and they still have a very, very long shelf life. So if that's why they stick it into what is like one of them's Blue Mountain, local one here. But they literally stick it in a mountain because the temperature never changes in the damn cave. They bought it. And it's really just temperature. That's the only thing you have to pay attention to. And tapes are fine. The only time that they're bad is if the temperature goes too much up and they get brittle. But nothing has beat tape yet. And they tried. I think IBM did prior to what we would call just CD-ROMs. There were actual discs that were written, but they don't last as long. And when I say discs, I mean like optical discs. And they used to hold a lot more. They used to have, I remember, this IBM jukebox, but nothing beats it. Nothing has ever beat it. It's always been king for long storage. But of course, today, what everyone does, which sort of grays it all over, is that since data has become cheap, is that you can literally keep stuff live and across a gazillion things. So, companies did that. Like I was at a company that did that, which was that, what did they have? They had a backup system. Oh no, well, they still use tape, but they had a backup system. One was on the East Coast and one was on the West Coast, but they have a line connecting both places. So they would rotate so that one day it would back up in, say, New York, and the other day it would back up in San Francisco. So that you'd always have a copy that was nowhere near the first place, so that if, the place burned down to the ground, you still had backups. I was confusing that. For a second there, I thought that was live, but it actually just had two tape systems that sat on both sides of the U.S.
Wait, but with the tape, you said, but is not humidity part of it? You said it's just temperature. I mean, that's part of the equation.
Temperature and humidity, but humidity is not. Unless you have a drenched, like your normal humidity is still relatively okay, but there's bounds. You can find out the bounds for a tape and what it survives with, but that's why a lot of people would send stuff off to. The one I mentioned was Blue Mountain, but there's lots of places like that where, of course, a company then, by law, or else you can sue them, have to keep it within a certain bound, and they literally do nothing but store tapes. That's their whole purpose. That used to be the standard, but of course now you could also do like Glacier with Amazon if you have data you want to keep but not touch for a long period of time. It's very cheap. And the way Amazon does it is that they charge you high for accessing the data, mainly because the whole idea is that you store it and then just leave it alone forever, because the whole idea is that it's just so that you have it stored somewhere. But that gets back to that more like live data sitting out there. But of course, for them, it's probably not live data. It's probably sitting on tapes. They probably just keep up. When you ask for the data, it takes a while to get it back because they're probably loading tapes somewhere. So there's no doubt that still for long storage, it's still tapes.
As a side comment, what came to mind to me is there's some kind of salt mine. If anyone ever saw that Paul W.S. Anderson Event Horizon movie in that '97, there apparently was all these director's cut the tape stuff. It's a different type of tape, I'm guessing, because of how it is that they filmed it. But apparently, something happened in the way that they tried to store it, and some kind of salt mine where it got ruined. And now we're never going to see the true director's cut. I'm sure it's a totally different situation in terms of the material, but that's what really came to mind. Is sometimes you just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I went to this salt mine in Romania, and it's huge and underground, and they've turned it into a theme park now. It's pretty wild. We've got pictures on the screen for the YouTube people. Anyone get any of the MLB NFTs yesterday?
I saw your post on that about those cards.
It was kind of fun.
Negative.
I mean, I managed to fail to get into the pre-sale or the original sale or whatever. I don't know if my browser didn't work or I clicked at the wrong time or whatever, but I did not get in. But then later on, they opened up on Wax, and of course the price got higher, but it was pretty fun. I mean, I've been into this digital collectible idea for a long time, and I always argued that baseball cards would be one of the best. And again, I guess I don't know if they're going to be worth lots of money or whatever. That's not a thing that I know. But as far as like fun to collect, they did a really good job with the pack dynamics. They had an original pack that started around $5 and was eventually selling for $30. And they had an expensive pack that started about $100 and was eventually selling for $300. But if you bought one of those packs, you could open it up, and it was full of random cards built, by an algorithm. So you had a certain chance to get rares. And if you had the $100 pack, you had a better chance to get exciting rares. But there's kind of a moment where your pack opens and it shows you the different cards, and you got some players, and some of them you like and some of you don't like. And you can sell them on an open market, and then you can use the money to buy other cards. So it was pretty fun.
Questions for you.
Sure, man.
2 questions about that. One is, is it verifiably true in terms of the percentage of randomness of what you get, for one, and for two, what is the underlying platform that this is being traded on in terms of it is immutability over time? Because if this is a platform, that's what I'm thinking about. Is it really truly a collectible, and what is that built on? Because that's the part I have not really looked into.
Well, I mean, it's collectible because it's a string of random numbers and letters, and that's what you're getting, and that part is unique, and that part doesn't excite anybody. But this string of random numbers and letters is stored on the Wax blockchain, and Wax did an ICO a few years ago, and they basically made a copy of EOS. And so EOS is very similar to Ethereum, at least at basic understanding. So it has smart contracts and all that, and they have NFTs, and now they have them on Wax. So then you use a company called atomicassets.io to kind of buy and sell these. You use another website called Wax, Wax Wallet or something like that. That's like a way of just accessing your money and sending it around. And basically, it's kind of the same thing as Bitcoin. So if Atomic Assets completely went away tomorrow, it would be difficult for me to view my cards and to send them around and such. But presumably, my password and other things that work into Wax Wallet and work into other things would also work with their blockchain. So if someone built a different version of that, they could access my cards for me on the blockchain. I could log in there and continue my collecting activities. So there's miners or verifiers or something for the Wax blockchain. So as long as those guys keep verifying it or mining it or whatever they do, my cards will always be there. So that is, that's the basic lay of the land. You can judge it from there. If you think they'll keep doing it for 5 years or for 10 years or for 6 months or 3 months, all that kind of thing. Certainly, the Topps company has been working with Atomic Assets for a while now. I'm not, full of information on this, but I can tell you they have Street Fighter assets on there, and they have Garbage Pail Kids on there, which I think was really fun to buy a bunch of. They were like 45 cents a piece, and I just got a bunch, and it was super fun. So
there's two. There's Wax E and Wax P apparently that I'm looking at in terms of two different types of tokens, so to speak. Is it?
I forget which one is the one that is. It's usually an orange logo, if that helps. And I use the Atomic Assets webpage, and I'm in it for the Garbage Pail Kids, and now I'm in it for the baseball cards. I don't think I'm going to make any money on this. I actually think I'm going to lose the money I put in. But yesterday I was going around buying Oakland A's, and those are my favorite team, and I got some San Francisco Giants too, and I was just fun. And if you're like baseball cards, it would be fun for you too. And as far as all the making money and lots of stuff like that, I don't know if you will, if it's big or not. Certainly there's as far as is it provable? Well, on the webpage where, Topps is an official company. So I think we have to trust them, but they had a percentage and an exact number for each one for the packs. So if you got the standard pack, it was this percent rare. And if you got the expensive pack, it was this percent rare. And it did seem to be working out. Like we opened a standard pack, and then my brother opened an expensive pack, and there were a lot of good cards in the expensive pack, like no doubt. But I don't know if it's like provable backwards, like you could watch the transaction or not. I think we might have to trust them. But I do think that it's the nice thing about these collectibles is that a lot of the things that in the collectible market, usually you have to like look up and kind of take for granted. Like this piece of paper is one of 3,000 pieces of paper in a set of 180,000 pieces of paper, right? That's all very arbitrary. But if you look at the NFT and it says it's one of 3,000, that's computer science, right? That's in a set of other, database items in this schema, and there are 3,000 of them, and you can verify because the computer will count them all. And if you want to print a list of them, you could print a list of them. It wouldn't mean you own them, but you could print a list of the, letters and numbers that make up the addresses. So stuff like that, it's very exciting. But that also might make them hard to sell. Like the nice thing about a Bitcoin is if you have, a little piece of it, you can trade it like it's a quarter or like it's $1. And everyone, just keeps trading these dollars because they're fungible, they're interchangeable. When you take this dollar and you spray paint on it and you write Oakland A's and you label it with a team and stuff, sure, I might want it, right? I think that's an interesting dollar. But later on down the line, when I try to sell someone this dollar, there's much less demand for that unique Oakland A's dollar than for the Bitcoin generic dollar. So it's you got to take that into account.
Do NFTs just store the hash of the graphic?
It depends on the NFT. So it depends on the company. Some companies, the graphic is not even directly linked in there. Like you'd have to have a website like Atomic Assets or something running to give you access to the image database. Some of the NFTs use IPFS, Interplanetary File System. And the way that kind of works is if there's a copy of it on a web page somewhere and that's linked to it, then it will make many copies of it and it'll work. But if it loses its original, then it might not work and things like that. So very much dependent on the NFT. In general, though, and I don't know that this is really talked about much, and maybe it would piss people off, but from a computer science perspective, like you're buying a PGP key, right? You're buying a PGP account, and someone's printed 30 of these PGP keys and put them on a blockchain with other PGP keys, and they are unique and they are, creative in their own way, like kind of like a symphony, but generally they don't really have they have a link to the artwork. They have a connection to the artwork that is kind of arbitrary, and you're just hoping that the artist is playing fair. Like with the Beeple artwork that sold for 69 million, I'm sure he signed a contract or something, but in general, if he wanted to make another copy of that and bless it as the Beeple artwork 2.0 and try to sell it for 69 million or 34 million or something, he could probably do that. Like there's not really that much stopping him. So, but yeah, does that answer your question about the artwork, or at least lead to a better understanding?
Yeah, I was always, that just confused me about where's the actual graphic reside? Because of course, adding that amount of data to a blockchain is crazy, because then you'll kill the blockchain in a very short amount of time with all the additions, because it's very close to, I thought NFTs are very close to, Bitcoin just had proof of existence stuff, which is just storing a hash on the chain, which says that, you have a document, and when you get the hash of it, you put it on the blockchain to basically state that it was in existence at this date, like proof of existence, as they say. And I thought NFTs would.
That seems pretty close to it. They're definitely not putting the image in the blockchain. I agree with you. That would make the blockchain huge and dot down the line. Sure. Depending on the service, and there are just many NFT services, depends on how they store it. I would bet a lot of them are centralized. I would bet the best ones are centralized with a decentralized backup. You see, because that would give you the best of both systems. You'd have the quick loading images of a centralized server, but the kind of long-term reliance and the eventual happiness of having that. I do think it's the kind of thing, though, if you just think arbitrarily, let's think, okay, let's say that Topps doesn't go too well with the NFTs and they completely go out of business. But 20 years from now, my people are like, we still like baseball cards. We still bought those Topps cards. We want to make them work again. I think that people could individually reassemble the image database, link them up to the string of letters and numbers that is the keys, and then build a new system, web page or app or virtual reality thing or whatever we use then to let you view your cards. So if it's just about, like for me, looking at a gallery of my Oakland A's players and saying, I have this one, I have that one, that's cool. I think they'll be able to deliver that to you. But I'm not sure if it really makes a link to the image, if you really like own the image, if you really have download access to the image forever. I don't think it's that kind of thing.
Right, so no two NFTs are alike in terms of this infrastructure, because they have different blockchains, they have different everything in terms of how they are trying to have pointers to IPFS and all these types of files and the redundancy from within. That's why I really don't really see much value in it personally, because it's so fragmented, just as it is. And yeah, you know what? A lot of people can make money from it, and they have, and that depends on one person's risk tolerance, I guess, at that point of yeah, but that's not my game. That's not something I want to play.
Well, I always thought that it's the thing is that with computers, connecting to a digital asset makes sense. I'm not sure about like if it's a JPEG, because that to me is weird because I can just have the JPEG. But like to give an idea, I always thought that NFT should morph into something that's, think about it this way. When you buy something from Apple on the iPhone, right? The reason you know that you own that is mainly because iTunes exists. Well, iTunes, the Apple Store exists. And of course, you don't want to face this fact, but if the Apple Store folded, you paid money and then you don't have that link anymore. So in other words, like my view is that if it's on a public blockchain, you can own a digital asset like a game. And because it's on a public blockchain, which is purported to be of infinite life, then you always have that and it's not connected to a company.
I think that's one of the best usage for it. Because if you think about a company like, let's say, ID Software, and they have Doom and they have Doom 2. And in Doom, you got a really nice golden pistol with your name on it and all kinds of things. And you get Doom 2, and the game can just say, do you want to import any weapons from Doom 1? And, you know, they'd have to write the game this way and so on and so forth, but they'd be incentivized to, presumably. And then you could use your gun from Doom 1 in Doom 2. And that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, it seems really arbitrary to a lot of normal people and stuff, but I could see how gamers would be into that. And there's an even better idea, I think, where a rival company could come along and say, make, other third-person shooter and use the Doom assets. So now you can use your gun from ID Software in rival companies' third-person shooter, and ID Software can't do anything about it. All they can really do is see where all of their weapons are staked, right? And if you're staking your weapons in the ID Software in Doom and Doom 2, that's great for them. They're getting, I don't know, some kind of token or something maybe. But
so you're talking about interoperability between blockchains and different platforms, different genres, different games, all that kind of stuff.
Think about like a card that was made for a Magic card type game, that because you wrote the third person shooter, you make that card an invincibility for 5 minutes. Like the Magic card game can't stop you, or theoretically can't stop you from doing that, right? Which is fun. It could lead to just having these assets go from game to game and having fun. It could also lead them to all just being abandoned and never used again. I mean, it's kind of wishful thinking and hopeful thinking that they'd program the things this way. But with these items, these individual items, it's theoretical that they could, and they'd be incentivized to.
Yeah, because I always thought that with an asset, computers have always suffered from trying to connect something as an asset. So in other words, if you have a database of books, the downside is that, of course, it's just a pointer. The book is on a shelf. You've bothered to put a pointer to it, so it says the book is on the shelf. But there's not really, and that's always true of like any database that you have, is that the idea is that you want perfection, but of course there's not a one-to-one. And if you're talking about digital things like a digital, as you were saying, a gun in a thing, you do have that absolute control because it's a digital item. But once you get into the physical world, like I always thought it funny when they said use blockchain for, and I know that they're actively doing this, but blockchain for, I think it was IBM, for the food chain, the food chain. I meant to say the product chain, like when they first grow the corn and then it gets shipped, the word, so it goes from point A to point B to point C to point D, blah, blah, blah. And the idea was that by putting it in a blockchain thing, you get to follow that sucker everywhere. And it would be great for like food recalls and things like that. But the downside is that the blockchain might be immutable, but it's also garbage in, garbage out. If someone enters in bullshit info, it's totally useless. So that would only make sense in the interface between the physical to the digital with all that blockchain stuff. what they apply it to, a lot of it makes no goddamn sense, because that's always prior to blockchain. That's always been a bitch. The idea of a physical asset, in other words, the closest that we've ever come, and it's the best, and we use it for packages, is the scanner codes. In other words, put a damn code on it, and every time you see it, scan it. And you can't make mistakes because it's a damn scanner. You're not going to enter in the wrong number because, the guy's drunk or whatever. And that's the closest we've ever come. But past that, connecting it to physical objects is always going to be a bitch because it's not related to the blockchain or any of that other crap. So,
correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same thing with like licensing, same thing with real estate, all that stuff. Analog to digital, the bridge between the two is that there has to be some reinforcement of law in some capacity of some kind of governance in the physical meat space world. So once we start to talk about bridging between the two, the question is well, okay, you have a license, you have this, you have a title to a car, a property tax or a lien or a deed on your house or whatever. But at that point, if you transfer it, what is the enforcing body in reality in real world terms? So there has to be that kind of association between the two. Otherwise, it is bunk. So yeah, I mean, as we are in the middle between analog and digital, purely analog and purely digital native worlds, we inherently are always in between the two, knowing that we still exist in physical space, and sometimes that has to always come back to it in some capacity for it to be recognized, especially when it comes to physical goods like a house or a car or something like that, or a card, I guess.
Yeah, I just always felt it's going to speed things up, but it's not going to change law. I mean, like when you say a house, right? They might very well make it so that the front lock of the house works on a digital aspect, but you can't lock people out of a house. So the speed of being able to lock someone out is now fantastically fast. But there is no doubt that the laws are going to have to creep in reference to all that stuff. So in other words, so it literally will just give us speed, and the law has to creep in there too, so that weird things are not happening. Because all considered, as much as we, I think that would get abused easily very quickly. Let me just put it to you that way. And the law would have to creep in there. So there's probably a whole area of law that's going to be born because of this.
I totally agree, Joe. And I think you're completely right on blockchains. They would always advertise how it's going to be this immutable database of diamonds. But then it's garbage in, garbage out. Like you said, that if they misenter the diamond information at the beginning, it's a blockchain of verified bad diamond information. It doesn't improve the information at all. And I think the same thing's happening now with the NFTs when they try to link it to something physical, when they say that you own this NFT is the rights to something. I'm not sure about that. When they say this NFT is the ownership of this art piece, or this NFT gives the ability to do something like go to a concert. If you go to a concert and you smell really bad, or if you go to a concert and you dress really terribly, or you act very offensively, it doesn't matter that you have the golden NFT ticket. They're going to kick you out. Whereas with a digital thing, if you have the NFT ticket that unlocks a digital thing, the NFT ticket always works. Like there's never any, presumably, I don't know, but there's no discrimination in the computer world. It doesn't say, oh, your IP address is from Spain, you can't use this digital music thing. It could say that, right? But right now it doesn't. And that's where I think the NFT ticket and the NFT type advanced, not just an art piece like a baseball card, which I think is cool, but also the NFT as a key, which again, we're really just talking about PGP keys right here, right? We're talking about normal people are discovering the value of encryption. Welcome, right?
I was going to say, you're dating yourself. You should say elliptical curve technology.
Oh, elliptical curve. Yeah.
Wait,
that's what it all is. All the keys.
I thought it's now Schnorr. I thought it's being upgraded because of the patent.
Well, no, but it's all still elliptical curve technology. It's all of the keys where you can have a private and a public. That's what it's all called.
Yeah, ECDSA from the original, but I thought that when it gets upgraded, at least in the Bitcoin perspective, is it still the same kind of concept? I mean, I really don't know what I'm referring to here, but I thought that was the whole point, is that it changes the algorithm in some way with this new upgrade that they're talking about.
Right. I think that the only thing that does is the idea of being able to, it's mainly because of math. Like, I think it's, right now you could do a multi-sig with like 3 guys, but if you want to do it with 10,000 guys, you're screwed. You can't go that high. But the reason that Schnorr, if I remember this correctly, the reason why that one is good is that it has, you can do a thing with addition of keys. So you can get 10,000 people, add them up, and you'll get 1 key. So in reference to processing power, there's nothing to do. It's really easy for the network to handle it. And I think it was that addition is one. There's other things that I forget, but that's the one that stuck in my head with the Schnorr signatures, if I'm remembering this correctly, was that, in other words, you can do, right now you can do a multi-sig key with, 3, but there's an upper bound to that. I forget what it is, but I think, you're not going to know 10,000. Like 10,000 people sharing the same, whatever it is, key. Mathematically, it can't be done. Or it's expensive, as they say with computers. And the Schnorr, you can do, the way that the keys work, you can add them, mathematically add them, and then it still works. And that's so it's still elliptical curve, but it's adding that extra functionality. That's my understanding of it.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now, and it seems really complicated. But trying to understand it just basically, it looks to me like there's a math formula that can make 2 sides of a key. One side is a lock and one side is the key. And if you flip them, like if you reverse them backwards, you would be able to determine the other one. Is that kind of what it is, Joe?
I forget the exact specifics. I just remember when I read it, the key thing that I remember is that there was a limitation for multi-sigs. And the reason why you would think this, in other words, you have to like rethink something that like nobody's thinking of right now. But if you only have like the idea you own a Bitcoin and you want to share it with 3 people, so you do a multi-sig, right? But let's say it's an insurance company and you want to make everyone a partial owner or something because everyone's basically paying into the pool. Well, you're not going to have 3 people. In other words, it's going to be like 10,000 people. And that was not able to be done. Like if you had to do it with regular keys that exist now in, say, Bitcoin, it's extremely expensive, meaning not expensive as in cost, as in processing power, because there's a limit. I forget what it is, but in reference to multi-sigs, it goes up to maybe the teens, and then you can't go past that or something like that. And so then you have to do some weird chaining to get all those 10,000 in that key. So it's extremely expensive. And Schnorr added something where you were able to add the keys to come up with 1 key, which means that for Bitcoin's sake, it's literally just processing 1 key at the tail end, even though that key was compromised out of 10,000 people's keys. And you can't do that with the current key setup. That's the diff that it did.
I agree. I pulled up a blog about Schnorr, and it seems very complicated as well. But it does seem like the important aspect is that you can daisy chain the keys. So you can just keep making more keys, whereas the other system, you could not just keep creating more keys. They said that it was a linear system for Schnorr. It works in a line, and they can just make more keys in that line, basically.
Right. And by the way, you said also about private and public being able to generate the other. It would be terrible if you can generate the private from the public. So it's the other way. In other words, I think there's ways to algorithmically produce a lot of publics from a private, but it would totally kill the system if you can get a public and generate a private. It would totally destroy all the cryptocurrencies would go away because the secret is the whole thing.
Absolutely. I've been watching a lot of great videos on lock picking with a lock picking lawyer on YouTube, and another guy called Make Stuff or Making Stuff. We Make Stuff, something like that. The guy that made the basketball automatic basketball hoop. Check that out. But yeah, it's super fascinating stuff with the lock picking, and of course the lock picking lawyer just flies through these things. But it was really great in the Make Stuff video. He actually showed the little triggers, the little springs that it's pushing down. He built like a flat sideways lock that you could see through it. It made a lot of sense to me for the first time, how the locks work and how the lock picking works. And It's really interesting stuff, kind of similar to programming. Yeah. But yeah, it's been good hanging out with you guys. I think we're getting up past an hour here, so we might head towards the end of this show. Is there anything you guys want to say in closing? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Space Cat, go ahead.
I got a bone to pick with all this nonsense going on with TikTok and all these investor bullshit, all these fucking coins that they're pitching and shit. Safe Moon, this and that, and the other. Like, it's insane. It's irrational. This entire market, it drives me nuts. But you know what? I can't make sense of it. Like, it makes no sense. There's always a loser on the other side of the trade. You know what I mean? And so when people are trying to basically orchestrate pump and dumps for these nonsense DeFi tokens and all this crap I'm seeing right now, I'm seeing it on my timeline, all this crap of these influencers trying to get people to put money into this crap. Like, I get a little frustrated, to be honest, because it's like, man, is this part of life? Like back in 2017 with the ICO boom, like, is this now what it comes down to? I'm just trying to figure it out, man. So that's where I'll be.
When the best lack all conviction, the worst are filled with a passionate intensity. So yeah, it seems like it's always been this way. I was thinking back to one of my first interviews where we talked about altcoins with some of the altcoin people. And back then you could just have them on and be polite to them and ask them questions. And it wasn't clear right away that it was a scam, or maybe they didn't know it was a scam, or it was a well-meaning scam, or that kind of thing. And now it's just a flashy marketing, spam images, lots of messages and excitement. And then you didn't even know if the whole market's being bought by the same people who set up the marketing. So yeah, there's just a lot of it. Definitely heats up during these times. Sometimes the altcoins go up more than Bitcoin. People get excited, they jump out and they jump back and forth. And that's how you generate trading fees for Coinbase and all those kind of places. So definitely keeps happening. It's going to keep happening. People like gambling, they like investing, they like moving their stuff around. The reality of dollar cost averaging Bitcoin, not looking at your amount, not looking at the price of Bitcoin every day and coming back in 5 years, I don't know if there's anyone capable of that. That's the ideal, though. That's what we all want to live up to. All right, let's go to Joe. Anything you'd like to say in closing? And of course, thanks to Joe and Space Cat and everybody else for hanging out today. Just a little impromptu spaces talking about old computers. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, this was very cool. These things are turning out to be interesting. This is the second thing that I joined while checking my Twitter feed. So this is very interesting. Get to meet people behind the mask because you follow people and you just see that the stuff they post. So an interesting topic. Definitely good.
Well, very cool. Thanks for hanging, Joe. And everyone check out the World Crypto Network. We're on YouTube and Twitter and all the spaces. And we've got lots more interviews that are similar to this proof of work interview where we talk about people's first computers. You can check out Adam Back's first computer, Max Kaiser's first computer. Lots of fun interviews that I was able to do thanks to people supporting the show and donations, and back in the old days when we used to travel around. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again soon with more episodes like this. And of course, the Bitcoin group every Friday on the World Crypto Network. So check it out and follow me on Twitter at Mad Bitcoins. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.